They called him the Prince of Football, a boy from the streets of Sao Paulo who won a treble at Barcelona, finished as the Champions League's top scorer, and placed third in the Ballon d'Or at just 23. He was supposed to inherit the throne from Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Instead, Neymar became modern football's greatest unanswered question, a lost king whose rise was breathtaking and whose fall still divides the world. Because what no one can agree on is who or what was truly responsible. That answer begins in a city where football was the only way out. Neymar da Silva Santos Jr. was born on February 5, 1992, in Mogi das Cruzes, Sao Paulo. When he was 7, his family left everything behind for Praia Grande, a place where the landfill was still open and the future felt uncertain. They slept on a single mattress, sometimes without electricity, sometimes with little to eat. Neymar Sr., once a lower division footballer, saw his own career end in a car crash that shattered his hip. With his dreams cut short, he became protector and strategist, determined to guide his son through hardship. Jardim Gloria's streets and futsal courts became Neymar's world. Concrete and dust shaped his courage and flair, teaching him to improvise and to play with a style that was both joyful and daring. His mother, Nadine, held the family together, while his father watched every move, unwilling to let another dream slip away. At 11, Zito, a World Cup winner and Santos director, spotted Neymar's talent and opened the door to the club's academy, but struggle remained. At 14, Neymar traveled to Spain for a Real Madrid trial. The coaches wanted him, but the deal fell apart over money and timing. Neymar Sr. chose to keep his son in Brazil, shaping the first major turning point in Neymar's life. At 17, Neymar stepped onto the pitch for Santos's senior team. The stadiums filled with anticipation, but the pressure that once belonged to his family now belonged to a nation. Within months, he was no longer just a promising academy hopeful, he was the player everyone came to see. His dribbling left defenders off balance, his creativity sparked goals from nothing, and his daring style brought back memories of the beautiful game that Brazil once claimed as its own. By the end of his first full season, Neymar had led Santos to the Campeonato Paulista title, a trophy that signaled his arrival as more than just a prospect. He followed with another Paulista crown and then the Copa do Brasil, each victory adding to the sense that something rare was unfolding. But it was the 2011 Copa Libertadores that changed everything. Scoring in the final, he delivered Santos its first continental title since Pelé, and the comparisons grew louder. Newspapers called him the new king, the next in the line of Brazilian legends. For many, Neymar was not just a star. He was the hope that Brazil's football soul could still produce a ruler worthy of the throne. The world began to watch, waiting to see if he could carry that promise beyond the borders of his first kingdom. Celebrity found Neymar before adulthood had a chance. As Santos's star rose, his father moved quickly, founding NR Sports to capture every possible image right and sponsorship. The family name became a registered trademark. By his late teens, Neymar was more than a player. He was a business asset. His face on billboards, his signature on boots, his likeness sold to the world. The Nike partnership arrived early, launching him onto the global stage before he had even left Brazil. Cameras followed him from the pitch to the parties, and the line between footballer and celebrity blurred overnight. Neymar Sr. orchestrated the expansion, negotiating contracts and building a commercial empire that would one day be valued at hundreds of millions. The family's grip was tight, controlling not only his career, but his image, his time, his story. Sponsorship meetings ran alongside training sessions. Off the field, the lifestyle grew louder, drawing crowds and headlines, and sometimes trouble. On the pitch, flashes of genius competed with flashes of temper. He clashed with coaches, questioned referees, and drew early criticism for his reactions to authority. Was it confidence or arrogance? The debate began as soon as the spotlight found him. As the Neymar project accelerated, the question of who was shaping whom, player or brand, became impossible to ignore. In 2013, Neymar arrived in Barcelona carrying the hopes of a nation and the weight of his own legend. The move was more than a transfer. It was a leap into a world defined by Lionel Messi, where every pass and every run orbited the greatest player of the era. Neymar, once the undisputed star at Santos, now stepped into a locker room where hierarchy was unspoken but absolute. The European game moved faster, demanded more discipline, and required a tactical awareness that could not be learned in the street or the spotlight of Brazilian stadiums. Early matches revealed the challenge. Moments of brilliance were met with periods of hesitation as Neymar searched for his place among giants. The arrival of Luis Suarez added a new dimension. Suarez, relentless and direct, became the bridge between Messi's calm genius and Neymar's raw flair. Together, they formed the MSN trio, a frontline as unpredictable as it was devastating. In training and in matches, chemistry developed not through words, but through instinct. Neymar learned when to wait, when to explode, and how to find joy in sharing the stage with players who had already conquered the world. The boy from Praia Grande was no longer alone. He was learning to be part of something greater, even as he fought to leave his own mark. The 2014-15 season at Barcelona turned Neymar from a prodigy into a force that demanded the world's attention. In the Champions League, his goals came when it mattered most. First against Paris Saint-Germain in the quarterfinals, then a clinical finish in the semifinal against Bayern Munich, and finally, the last strike in the final against Juventus. By the end of the campaign, he stood as joint top scorer in Europe's greatest competition, level with Messi and Ronaldo. Barcelona swept the treble, La Liga, Copa del Rey, and Champions League, a feat reserved for the most legendary teams. Neymar's performances were not just supporting acts. In those high-pressure nights, he was the difference. On January 11, 2016, he stood on the Ballon d'Or podium, finishing third behind Messi and Ronaldo. But the gap felt smaller than ever. Legends and pundits spoke of him as the heir apparent, the next king ready to inherit football's crown. For a brief, electric moment, it seemed inevitable. The world expected Neymar's reign to begin, not as a question, but as a promise waiting to be fulfilled. Neymar pulled on the number 10 shirt for Brazil and almost overnight became the beating heart of a country's hope. The Confederations Cup in 2013 was his coronation. He danced through Spain's defenders, lifted the trophy in Rio, and the Maracana roared as if the drought had finally ended. That summer, Neymar wasn't just a footballer, He was the promise that Brazil's glory would return on home soil. The 2014 World Cup brought the weight of that promise crashing down. Neymar's goals and creativity carried Brazil through the group stage and into the quarterfinals. Every touch seemed to lift a nation that had not won the tournament since 2002. But in Fortaleza against Colombia, a knee to the back from Juan Camilo Zuniga changed everything. Neymar collapsed, clutching his spine. The diagnosis, a fractured vertebra. His tournament was over. The team doctor said he was 2 centimeters from never walking again. Without their star, Brazil faced Germany in the semifinal. The 7-1 defeat became a national trauma. Tears in the stands, silence in the streets, and a sense of loss that went beyond football. For Neymar, forced to watch from a hospital bed, the pain was both physical and existential. The boy who carried a nation's dreams was left powerless, and Brazil's wound became his own. The memory of that night lingered, shaping the pressure and the doubts that would follow him for years. The summer of 2017 broke football's old order. Neymar, at 25, activated a release clause no one believed would ever be paid, 222 million euros, shattering every transfer record in history. Barcelona's hierarchy watched in disbelief as their brightest star chose to walk away, not for money alone, but for something more dangerous. He wanted a team built around his name, a stage where he was not second to Messi, but the main attraction. Paris Saint-Germain offered him that throne. The project was built for him from the ground up, his number, his image, his rules. In interviews, Neymar spoke openly. "I wanted to be the main star." He left behind the comfort of shared glory for the isolation of leadership, knowing the world would now hold him to a higher standard. Ballon d'Or expectations soared. Every match, every touch, every headline became a referendum on whether he could rule football's kingdom alone. The risk was total, the ambition unmistakable, a gamble that would define everything that followed. The promise of Paris began to unravel not in a single moment, but through a steady drip of absences. Lower limb injuries, metatarsal fractures, ankle sprains, hamstring strains kept Neymar sidelined during the most decisive weeks of the season. He missed Champions League knockout ties in 2018 and 2019, watching from the stands as PSG's dreams slipped away. Each medical report became a headline, each return a question mark. When fit, his brilliance was undeniable. Goals, assists, moments of pure invention. But the calendar told a harsher story. Across 5 years in Paris, Neymar missed more than 70 matches through injury, a rate far higher than Messi or Ronaldo. Doubts began to harden. Critics pointed to late-night parties, carnival trips, and a string of missed recovery sessions. In February 2020, a rib injury followed a nightclub birthday, fueling talk that focus was slipping. Public suspicion grew as social media filled with images from celebrations while teammates prepared for critical matches. Journalists questioned his professionalism, and the gap between his talent and his reliability widened. For PSG, and for those who once believed a new king had arrived, the story became one of what might have been. Each absence, another page lost from the reign that never quite began. Neymar arrived at the 2018 World Cup with his reputation still sparkling, but his body was only just healed. Opponents wasted no time testing that recovery. he became the most fouled player in Russia, brought down 4.3 times per match, as if every defender had been given the same instructions: stop him at all costs. Each match became a gauntlet of tackles, shoves, and late challenges, but the world's attention soon turned from the bruises to the way he responded. Every fall, every grimace, every slow roll along the turf was clipped, shared, and replayed. Neymar rolling memes swept across social media, transforming him from football's artist into a global punchline. In Brazil, pundits pointed to the relentless fouling, defending his need for self-preservation. Abroad, the narrative hardened. Neymar was no longer just a magician, but a diver, a showman who played for the cameras as much as the scoreboard. By the time Belgium knocked Brazil out in the quarterfinals, the conversation had shifted. His talent, so often undeniable, was now buried beneath ridicule and suspicion. For the first time, Neymar found himself fighting not just defenders on the pitch, but an image he could not control, as the world laughed louder than it cheered. In May 2019, a sexual assault allegation against Neymar was filed in Paris. The story dominated headlines, with every detail dissected in real time across social media. As the case moved through the French legal system, prosecutors ultimately dismissed the charge for lack of evidence in 2021. But the accusation alone brought consequences. Nike, his longtime sponsor, announced the end of their partnership in 2020, citing the unresolved investigation. The loss of the Nike deal was more than financial. It was a public blow to the carefully built Neymar brand. At the same time, Neymar's private life became an open battleground. Family moments, relationships, and even arguments were broadcast to millions, fueling a debate that rarely paused for legal clarity. Supporters pointed to his charitable work through the Instituto Neymar Jr., which has provided thousands of scholarships and built community centers in São Paulo's poorest neighborhoods. Yet critics questioned his discipline and commitment, pointing to missed training sessions and public spats as signs of misplaced priorities. The conversation around Neymar grew sharply polarized. For some, he remained a symbol of generosity and joy, a player who brought hope to children far from the spotlight. For others, the controversies, the social media storms, and the perception of distraction clouded his legacy. In the glare of constant judgment, Neymar's story became less about clear answers and more about the contradictions that define a life lived entirely in public. The night in Lisbon, August 2020, was supposed to be Neymar's coronation. Paris Saint-Germain, built around his vision, reached the Champions League final for the first time. 90 minutes against Bayern Munich separated him from the summit he had chased since leaving Messi's shadow. But the match slipped away, 1-0, and Neymar left the field in tears, one match short, the promise unfulfilled once again. Soon after, the world shifted again. Lionel Messi arrived in Paris, and the old hierarchy crept back in. The club that had made Neymar its centerpiece now belonged to another legend. Kylian Mbappé, younger and ambitious, became both partner and rival. Their combination produced flashes of brilliance, but tension simmered beneath the surface. Ego, ambition, and the sense that time was running out for Neymar to claim his own era. By 2022, the physical toll was impossible to ignore. Ankle injuries, muscle strains, and relentless schedules left Neymar fighting his own body as much as his opponents. The World Cup in Qatar became a final stage. Against Croatia in the quarterfinal, he scored a goal in extra time, a burst of genius that looked like destiny. But when the match went to penalties, Neymar never took his shot. Brazil fell, and the moment passed. Legacy, for a second, had been within reach. Hesitation, fatigue, or fate, no one could say for sure. The window for glory closed, leaving only questions and the tightening grip of regret. In July 2023, Neymar signed with Al Hilal, accepting a contract that stunned even the most jaded football economists. The numbers, over 150 million euros per year, plus bonuses for every social media post, were a reminder that his global value still carried weight, even as the world's top leagues began to move on. For Neymar, this was more than a transfer. It was a final gamble, a bid to prove that his name could still command not just attention, but a team built around him. Yet the pitch in Riyadh offered no protection from the relentless march of time. Only months into his Saudi adventure, disaster struck. A rupture of the anterior cruciate ligament and meniscus in his left knee left him writhing on the turf, the pain unmistakable, the diagnosis immediate. Surgery followed, then a long and lonely rehabilitation, 12 months away from the game, the clock ticking louder with every missed match. The contract, so rich in promise, became a document of absence. Al Hilal, facing another season without its marquee star, announced a mutual termination in June 2026. The gamble had ended not with triumph, but with the sobering realization that survival, not glory, was now the only goal. Neymar, once football's crown prince, stood at the edge of the sport's elite, forced to confront the limits of a body that could no longer keep pace with his ambition. Santos welcomed Neymar home not as a returning superstar, but as a son seeking shelter after years spent chasing the world's approval. The contract he signed in 2025 was brief and modest, written less for glory than for closure. At the Villa Belmiro, every embrace with old teammates carried the weight of memories, of titles won, of a boy who once played without fear. The crowd's cheers felt different now, softer, more grateful, a recognition of fragility as much as fame. His training sessions were measured, each sprint watched with anxious hope. The knee that had survived surgery reminded everyone, especially Neymar, that the body is not always willing to follow the heart. Appearances on the pitch were limited, shaped by medical caution and the knowledge that one wrong step could end everything. Still, there were flashes, a dribble that drew a smile, a touch that recalled the old magic. With another World Cup on the horizon, talk of trophies faded. What mattered was the chance to rediscover joy, to play for the love that first pulled him from the streets of Praia Grande. Legacy, not silverware, became the measure. Neymar's return was a search for meaning in the twilight, a quiet hope that coming home could heal what ambition and injury had left undone. Today, Neymar stands as football's most brilliant unfinished sentence, part artist, part enigma. His legacy challenges how we measure greatness. Is it trophies or the courage to play with joy despite expectation and pain? As new talents emerge, Neymar's story warns that genius alone is never enough. The crown remains unclaimed, and the question, choice, or circumstance still echoes. What's your verdict? Join the conversation below.